In this writing, I am attempting to compare the creative process that goes into creating a music CD to the creative process which has gone into creating the symphony we call life. Life was created by a master composer with many elements involved in the symphony. Being spiritually tone deaf simply means that one does not hear the tones and notes in the symphony of life. For instance, the definition of being musically tone deaf is this: the lack of relative pitch or the inability to distinguish between musical notes. Or simply put, this means an individual might have a hard time singing in tune or hearing musical tones. Again, this is simply an attempt at comparing life's creation to the creation of a music CD. On a lighter note, I was going to call this book STD, an acronym for spiritually tone deaf. Realizing STD is also an acronym for a familiar sex-related term, I decided to use the whole title instead. I will be using the acronym STD occasionally throughout the book, instead of saying the whole title. The title of this book, Spiritually Tone Deaf, is a play on the definition which describes musically tone deaf. No one knows why, but for some reason musical tones don't easily resonate in a tone deaf person's ear or mind, preventing them from hearing the true essence of the notes. I've used the first part of this book to describe what it means to be musically tone deaf. Now, the following statement describes a bit more in detail what it means to be spiritually tone deaf. Spiritually tone deaf means that spiritual principles do not resonate in one's spiritual ears or spiritual mind. This can cause a person to ignore or overlook basic spiritual laws. As a result of being STD, one may not be aware that if you deliberately harm another person, to that same degree, you will experience harm in one way or another based on a law known as karma. Some people also may not be aware that if you take another person's life, you are not erasing that person's existence. Their energy essence actually survives. The reason you can't erase that person's existence is because energy cannot be destroyed, and the soul is pure energy. Therefore, it cannot be destroyed. The individual you thought was being eliminated has simply transitioned into another reality. That person is a pure spiritual being who is still just as alive as you are, and possibly even more alive. I've just described a few of the laws that spiritually tone deaf people are not hearing in their spiritual ears while listening to music from the symphony of life. These laws have existed since the beginning of time, and they are a respecter of no one. In other words, we are all affected by the laws just mentioned and every other spiritual law that exists. Some people may not be aware that they create their own lives on every level of existence. In other words, not being aware of these spiritual laws is what's meant by spiritual tone deaf. I know it might seem a little far-fetched to compare the complexity of creation to the production of a musical CD, but just bear with me as I explain the reasoning behind this concept. I feel music is a universal language, and most people can attest to how influential music is in their lives. I only wish that we all felt the same way about spiritual matters. Everything is connected through spirituality. Granted, this book utilizes a simple analogy to make that point. If the simple analogy of tone deafness helps to convey this message, why not use it? The point of this book is to compare some obvious things in life to point out some not so obvious things in life. The following description is an attempt to explain some of these things. Most of us go through life not even aware that there is an underlying force in the universe consistently at work to keep everything in order. This life force is so intricately interwoven in with everything else that most of us don't notice it or care that it even exists. I've spent many long hours in recording studios. Because of my familiarity with the process, I frequently use the studio situation as an analogy while referencing various spiritual subjects. The process of recording a CD can be a long one, consisting of composing, writing, mixing, and mastering, even down to the actual releasing of the CD to the public. After completing this process, the goal is to produce a great sounding record, hoping that it appeals to a wide range of people, eventually turning into a successful product. It doesn't matter to the listener that various instruments, long hours, special effects, and numerous elements were combined to create this record. It's probably a good thing the average listener isn't aware of the effort involved in production of a CD. And probably even better, they're unable to identify individual instruments on the record. After all, that is the main purpose of the mixing and the mastering process, to bring all the elements together as a finished and polished product, making them sound as one cohesive unit. The creation of life is a lot like the previous scenario. People go through life listening to the CD of life totally unaware of all the elements involved. In a recording studio, there are usually highly qualified engineers to record, mix, and master a CD to make it sound awesome before it is released to the public. While in the studio of life, so to speak, we also have a master engineer who has composed, recorded, mixed, mastered, and released the CD soundtrack of life. An individual listening to a music CD might not hear the guitar in the mix, playing those flowing chords, accommodating a beautiful melody. He might not focus on the subtle but effective bass line in which the bass player is playing to accommodate a cool groove that the drummer is executing. The listener hears many elements working in perfect harmony, yet may not be able to identify them individually. But he knows something is happening to awaken several emotions deep inside. After saying that, this leads me to the real meaning of the book's title. Here are a few comparisons displaying similarities between the elements of life and the elements of a music CD. Here's my interpretation of that concept. The artist, composer, and writer of the music CD can be compared to God or universal consciousness, which created everything in life. The drums can be called the universal heartbeat. The bass guitar can be compared to the blood flowing through the veins of life, supporting the heartbeat while providing a solid foundation of life. The guitar can be compared to the life force that keeps a steady rhythm flowing simultaneously and harmoniously with the pulse of the universe. The string section can be compared to human emotions by adding color and various moods to the track, while the piano might be equated to the energy that keeps the blood flowing directly to the heart. The horn section might be compared to the rib cage, taking the hits and the dynamics of life, creating a cohesiveness that protects, surrounds, and supports other instruments on the CD. The melody could be compared to spiritual laws because it stands out the most. If a musically tone-deaf person can learn a melody and nail it, he is home free. That's how it works for an STD as well. When a spiritually tone-deaf person learns to sing the spiritual laws of life in tune, he becomes more aware. Now he has a better understanding of how to hear the spiritual tones of life a lot clearer. My point is simply this. Some people are tone deaf to the tones and elements on a music CD, but they are still capable of learning the melody and singing in tune if they are willing to listen. Life is a lot like that as well, because to the same degree, many people are tone deaf to the spiritual elements on the CD of life, but they are capable of learning the laws of life by tuning in. A musically tone-deaf person may never hear all the musical tones or understand the creative process of a CD until he is made aware of what truly happens behind the scenes in a recording studio. As with most spiritually tone-deaf people, they will never understand the aspects of spirituality until it's revealed to them what has truly taken place behind the scenes of life's creation. So this is why I'm attempting to familiarize STDs with some of the elements used in the creation of life. The best way to become spiritually in tune is to become familiar with life's spiritual laws. Once these laws become a part of life on a daily basis, only then can one begin utilizing and appreciating the purpose of each element involved in this symphony we call life. In closing, I'd like to say, if this message has helped only one person to understand the significance of spirituality and what it means to be spiritually in tune, all I can say is mission accomplished. Thanks for listening.